The keys always jingled especially loudly when I was tired. Today they clanked sharply and annoyingly. Thursday had been a rough day at school. Some 8th graders had decided to test what would happen if they stuck gum in the keyhole of the chemistry room, and another had spilled Coca-Cola all over the first-floor hallway. At my age of 65, such exploits by schoolchildren are no longer seen as cute pranks, but as an extra hour of work with a bucket and mop. I parked in front of my house on Maple Street and noticed an unfamiliar silver Toyota. The Harrison neighbors had recently bought a new car, I thought, as I climbed the familiar porch steps. The house greeted me with a strange silence and the smell of someone else's perfume. It was too sweet, too cloying. Voices came from the living room. A woman's laughter, a man's cough, Persephone's familiar voice. I took off my shoes and walked down the hallway where 22 years ago I'd glued that fine floral wallpaper myself. It seemed to me then that it would last forever. In the living room, on my couch, sat 3 people I didn't know. Persephone stood at the window, gesturing toward the wall between the living room and the kitchen. A woman about my age, dressed in a beige suit, was scrutinizing the ceiling, and a man with thinning hair and gold glasses was tapping his knuckles on the wall. "This is definitely the place to tear down," Persephone said. "Can you imagine what a studio kitchen would look like? Modern, spacious, and this carpet, of course, should be removed at once. Put parquet everywhere." The man nodded and took a tape measure out of his pocket. From wall to wall would be 7 meters, no less. "Beatrice, do you like it?" The woman in the beige suit smiled. "Mortimer, darling, I like it very much. Such possibilities. How many rooms are there upstairs?" 3 bedrooms, Persephone answered. One could be converted into a study, or a room for the grandchildren when they arrive. I stood in the doorway, trying to figure out what was going on. These people were discussing my house as if they already owned it, like I was a ghost about to disappear. "Excuse me," I said softly. All 3 of them turned around. Persephone looked a little embarrassed, but quickly pulled herself together. "Oh, Cordelia, I didn't expect you back so early. These are my parents, Mortimer and Beatrice Cruikshank." The man gave me his hand to shake. His palm was dry and cool. "It's very nice to meet you, Cordelia. Persephone has told me so much about you." "What did she tell me?" I asked, not letting go of his hand. Beatrice rose from the couch and came closer. Her perfume was even sweeter than it looked from afar. "We are very excited to finally see our new home. Persephone showed us pictures, but it's even better in person." "Your new home?" I asked. Persephone quickly stepped between us. "Cordelia, I thought Caspian had already talked to you. We decided it would be best if my parents moved here. You know, Dad just retired. It's hard on Mom in that big house. And at your age, you don't need a house like that." "At my age," I repeated slowly. "Yeah, you're gonna be 70 soon. Why do you need 3 bedrooms and 2 floors? We thought maybe you could move into a cozy apartment, or a home for the elderly. There's nurses there, activities." Mortimer coughed. "Of course, we're willing to discuss compensation. Persephone said the house was bought a long time ago. The mortgage is probably already paid off. We don't want to offend anyone." "Compensation," I repeated. "For my own house." "Not exactly your own," Persephone corrected gently. "Caspian has a say, too. And we're a family. Families are supposed to help each other." Beatrice sat back on the couch and stroked the armrest. "What comfortable furniture. Will the TV stay?" "Mom, of course it will stay," Persephone laughed. "Everything stays. Cordelia doesn't need a lot of things." I looked at that TV. I bought it 5 years ago when the old one broke. It took me a long time to choose, reading reviews online, asking the salesman for advice. It was my first flat-screen TV. "Where's Caspian?" I asked. "In the garage, I guess. You know how he likes to tinker with his hardware." Mortimer took out the tape measure again and started measuring the distance from the couch to the window. "Beatrice, what do you think about the color of the walls? Should we change the wallpaper? Something more modern?" "Absolutely, darling. That flower is getting a little old-fashioned. I've been looking at them and trying to figure out when this craziness started. When did my house stop being mine? When did my son decide he could take over my life? When did his wife think I was superfluous?" "Persephone," I said as calmly as I could, May I speak with you alone? Of course. Mom, Dad, why don't you take a look in the kitchen? There's a lot of interesting things in there, too. We went out into the hallway. Persephone closed the door to the living room and turned to me with the expression on her face that I'd known for the 7 years we'd known each other. Patient, condescending, as if she were talking to a cranky child. Cordelia, I realize change is always scary, but think about it. Do you really need a house this big? You work as a maintenance worker at the school. It's a small salary. Utilities, repairs, property taxes, it's all expensive. And the house is getting old, like all of us. The house is in my name, I said. Well, yeah, but Caspian's your son, the only heir. Sooner or later, he'll get the house anyway. Why wait? Beatrice cheered from the kitchen. Mortimer, look at the huge oven, and there's a dishwasher. I bought that dishwasher last year, I said, with my own money. So? Persephone shrugged. It's not like we're asking you to donate the house. We're willing to pay a fair price. What fair price? Well, what did you pay for it 20 years ago? Plus inflation, of course. 20 years ago, I paid $80,000 for this house. Now it's worth at least $250,000. Maybe more because the neighborhood had become popular, and they'd opened a new hospital and a shopping mall nearby. Persephone, I said slowly, this house isn't for sale. Of course it is. Caspian already said yes. Caspian doesn't own the house, but he is your son, and my husband, and my parents are his family now. We're all family. There was a man coughing from the living room. Girls, would you mind showing us the basement? I think we could set up a workshop in there. The garage always smelled of oil and metal, the smell of Caspian's childhood when he started helping me fix my old lawnmower when he was 12. Back then, I still thought he'd make a mechanic or an engineer. I didn't think he'd be hiding out here from his own wife at 38. I pushed open the heavy door and saw a familiar sight. Caspian was lying under his Harley, with only his legs sticking out in work jeans and worn sneakers. The radio was quietly playing some old song. Tools, oily rags, and an empty beer can were lying on the workbench. Caspian, I called out. Metal scraped against metal, then a swear word. Mom? What are you doing here? He crawled out from under the bike, wiping his hands on an old t-shirt. His hair was disheveled, a dark streak of machine oil on his cheek. At times like this, he looked exactly like he did when we were 15 and changed the brake pads on my car together. We need to talk, I said. Caspian looked at the door leading into the house, then back at me. About what? About why your wife's parents are sitting in my house, planning to rearrange the furniture. He picked up a wrench from the workbench and started twirling it around in his hands. An old habit. When he was nervous, he needed to hold something in his hands. Persephone said she'd talk to you herself. She did. Now I want to talk to you. Caspian put the key back and sat down on a stool by the workbench. The radio was playing a song from the 80s, something about lost love and roads leading home. Mom, it's complicated. What's complicated? Telling your mother you've decided to sell her house? Not selling. It's not like we're selling it on the side. Persephone's parents are good people. Mortimer was an accountant all his life, an honest man. Beatrice was an elementary school teacher. So what? They can't afford a house in this neighborhood, and Persephone's worried that they're alone in the old house. The house is falling apart. The heating's always breaking down. I sat on the toolbox across from my son. The garage was cool, smelling of fall and the fallen leaves that swooped under the door. Caspian, I understand you want to help your wife's family, but this is my house. Mom, do you really need a house that big? You've been living there alone for 7 years since I got married. Half the rooms are empty. No, they're not. It's my stuff, my life. What stuff? Old photographs, books you don't read? He spoke softly, almost in a whisper, as if he was afraid to be heard in the house. Or maybe he was afraid to hear himself. I have an idea, he continued. We sell the house to Persephone's parents. We get the money. We use the money to buy you a nice apartment. Maybe even in that new complex near the park. It's got a concierge, security, gym. I don't want an apartment in the new complex. Why not? Because I want my own place. Caspian picked up a screwdriver from the workbench and started twirling it between his fingers. Mom, honestly, Persephone's right about the expense. The house is old. Things break all the time. Last year you spent 3 grand on the roof. Changed the boiler in the winter, another 5,000. How much? It's my money and my decisions. But you can't work as a school technician forever. What will happen when you retire? I looked at my son and saw something new in his eyes. Tiredness. He looked older than his 38 years. Wrinkles around his eyes, gray hairs in his temples. Caspian, what's going on? Tell me the truth. He put the screwdriver down and rubbed his face with his hands. We're having money problems, Mom. What kind of problems? Persephone lost her job 3 months ago. Her firm was downsized. Her entire marketing department shut down. She's looking for a new position, but so far, no luck. Why didn't you tell me? She didn't want anyone to know. She says it's just temporary. And you're working. I'm working, but one paycheck isn't enough. We have a mortgage, a car loan, credit cards. Persephone was used to a certain standard of living. Caspian worked as an air conditioning repairman. Not a bad job, but not enough to support a house in a nice neighborhood and a wife who changes her closet every month. How much do you owe? I asked. A lot, too much. Caspian, how much? He paused, looking at his hands. 120,000, maybe more. I felt something tighten in my chest. $120,000 in debt for a family with one working man was a disaster. Jesus, Caspian, how did you manage that? I don't know. It's been a bit of a cakewalk. A credit card here, a loan there. Persephone said it was an investment in our future. Advanced training, business clothes, a better car to impress employers. And now you need the money from the sale of my house to pay off your debts. Mom, I didn't mean for this to happen, but if we don't find a solution, we could be evicted. The bank has already sent a warning. The radio was playing a commercial for a car dealership. A cheerful voice promised the lowest prices in town and an interest-free loan. How much is your house worth? I asked. We bought it for $280,000. It's worth about the same now, maybe a little less. So if you sold it, you'd pay off your debts, but you'd be homeless. Yeah, that's why Persephone's parents suggested it. We sell our house, they buy yours, we move in, temporarily. Temporarily for how long? Well, until we get back on our feet. A year, maybe 2. I pictured my son living with his wife in his mother-in-law and father-in-law's house. Caspian, who's always valued freedom and independence, who at 16 built his first motorcycle from parts he found in a junkyard. Is Persephone on board with this plan? She's got nowhere to go, although she says it's only temporary. She says she'll find a better job soon. Caspian, do you want to live with your wife's parents? He looked at me, and I could see the answer in his eyes. Of course he doesn't, but he has no choice. Mom, I screwed up, I know. But there's no other options right now. Yes, there are. What are they? You can get a divorce. Caspian shook his head. I love Persephone. Things just got complicated after she lost her job. She's nervous. I'm nervous. But it'll pass. You think? It should. There were voices coming from the house. Beatrice was talking excitedly. Mortimer was laughing. Persephone was explaining where to put the new dining table. Mom, Caspian said quietly, give us a hand, please. I lay in the dark and listened to the house breathing around me. Old houses breathe in a special way, the creak of floorboards, the crackle of wood, the sound of water in the pipes. For 22 years I had fallen asleep to these sounds, and they had become a part of me. At 1:30 in the morning, Mortimer was talking in his sleep from the guest bedroom. In the next room, Beatrice had settled herself as thoroughly as if she intended to live there forever. Persephone and Caspian had gone home after dinner, promising to return in the morning to discuss the details. Details. As if this was about buying a new dishwasher, not kicking me out of my own house. I turned onto my left side and looked out the window. The moon was illuminating the old maple tree in the yard, the same one I'd planted right after I bought the house. It had been a thin twig then, but now its branches reached to the roof of the second floor. On April 22, 2003 years ago, I first crossed the threshold of the house as its owner. It was spring, smelling of lilacs and fresh paint. The previous owners had painted the porch before they sold it. Caspian was still in high school, an angular 17-year-old with disheveled hair and dreams of being a rock musician. We stood in the middle of the empty living room, where they were now arguing about which wall to tear down, and I said, "Well, son, this is our home now." Caspian nodded and went off to explore the garage. Even then, he was more interested in machinery than people. His divorce from his father had been finalized 6 months before he bought the house. Richard had gone off to his secretary, a banal story that happens to millions of women. He was 42, she was 28. They had a passionate love affair and plans for a future together. Richard and I had 17 years of marriage, a mortgage, a teenage son, and a habit of not talking to each other in the evenings. I wasn't scandalized when he confessed. I just said, "Okay, Richard, move in with her." I think he was expecting tears, tantrums, threats. When he got a calm agreement, he got confused and started to explain that it just happened and that he didn't mean to hurt me. I stopped him. "Richard, I understand. Just get your stuff and move out." And we sold the house and split the money in half. My half was enough for the down payment on the house and the furniture. I paid the mortgage for 15 years, working as a school technician during the day and cleaning offices at night. Caspian went to community college, lived at home, and worked part-time at a machine shop. The hardest years were the first 3. I'd wake up at night and not realize where I was. I got used to the presence of another person next to me, to the sound of someone else's breath, to the fact that someone else shared the warmth of the blanket with me. Now the bed seemed as big as a lake. Gradually, the loneliness became comfortable. I could eat ice cream for dinner, watch soap operas until 3 in the morning, read in bed. No one had to explain to me why I was buying expensive soap or why I needed new curtains for my bedroom. The money I made was spent on things I liked. The house was getting used to me, too. I changed something every year. The kitchen tiles, the wallpaper in the hallway, the faucet in the bathroom. It wasn't out of necessity. I just wanted the house to become more me. I wanted it to be nothing like it had been before, when I'd been Richard's wife and not just Cordelia. Caspian married 7 years ago. He'd brought Persephone home the year before the wedding, a tall blonde with a white-toothed smile and a habit of talking very fast. She studied my house as carefully as if she were studying for an exam. She asked me how much it had cost when I bought it, if I was thinking of moving. It seemed like a natural curiosity to me at the time. A young girl wondering about the life of her future mother-in-law. Now I realized that Persephone had viewed my house as potential property from the beginning. After the wedding, they rented an apartment for a year and a half, then took out a mortgage on their own house. Persephone wanted to live in an upscale neighborhood, in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. Caspian agreed, although I could see the loan payments were stressing him out. Persephone worked at a marketing agency, earned more than her husband, and was a constant reminder of that. Not directly, of course, just remarks like, "Unfortunately, Caspian can't afford a vacation in Europe," or, "It's a good thing at least one of us has a promising career." Caspian would stiffen when she'd say that. He began to justify himself, to explain that the work of an air conditioner repairman was also important and necessary. Persephone agreed, but with a look on her face as if she were talking about the need for garbage men or sewer workers. Now she had lost her job and the situation had changed. Suddenly it appeared that Caspian's job wasn't so bad, but one paycheck wasn't enough for their lifestyle. They needed money, lots of money, and fast. I got out of bed and walked to the window. It was quiet outside, with only the lights of a night store flashing in the distance. My neighborhood was sleeping the peaceful sleep of working people who would get up tomorrow, eat breakfast and drive to work. Tomorrow I'll get up, eat breakfast and drive to school. I'll mop the floors, wipe down desks, take out the trash. And when I get home, Mortimer and Beatrice will be sitting in my living room planning where to put their furniture. I went back to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. The numbers were spinning in my head. $120,000 in debt, $250,000 the value of my house. The $80,000 I'd once paid. The simple arithmetic of other people's greed. At 7:30 in the morning, the alarm clock rang. I got dressed, went down to the kitchen, and put the coffee on. Mortimer was already sitting at the table in my dressing gown. Apparently Beatrice had given it to him from the travel bag. "Good morning, Cordelia," he said cheerfully. "This is a beautiful kitchen you have, very functional." "Good morning," I replied. "And the coffee is so fragrant. What kind? The usual, from the supermarket. Beatrice appeared 10 minutes later, fully dressed and combed. She sat next to her husband and smiled at me. Cordelia, darling, Mortimer and I were up all night discussing plans for the house. So many ideas. Mortimer wants a workshop in the basement, and I'm thinking of putting in a little garden behind the house. You don't mind, do you? Mind what? Well, against change. The house needs a little modernization, of course. Nothing drastic, just freshened up. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from them. When do you plan to move in? Oh, as soon as possible. Beatrice shook her hands. Persephone suggested we celebrate tomorrow night. A small reception, invite the neighbors, get to know each other. She's already sent out the invitations. Send out invitations, I repeated. Oh yeah, by email, of course. Modern technology makes life so easy. She said the Cruikshank family was moving to Maple Street and would love to meet the neighbors. Mortimer nodded. That was very thoughtful of her. It's important to establish a good relationship with the neighborhood community right away. I finished my coffee and put the cup in the sink. Tomorrow, then. Yes! Beatrice was radiant. Persephone said she'd organize everything herself. Appetizers, drinks. She's got great taste in that sort of thing. I took my bag and headed for the door. Okay, have a good day. You too, dear. In the meantime, we're going to take a closer look at the house. Mortimer wants to measure the basement. I went out on the porch and closed the door behind me. My house, my porch, my steps, still mine. At school, the day stretched on endlessly. I scrubbed the floors in the hallways and thought about Mortimer measuring my basement with a tape measure and Beatrice picking out a spot for the garden. Every stroke of the mop gave me a dull ache in my temples. By lunchtime, I had a plan. Peterson and Associates was located downtown in a 2-story red brick building. I parked nearby and sat in the car for a while, gathering my wits. The sign promised fair deals and personalized attention to each client. We'll see. The reception area smelled of coffee and expensive perfume. Behind the counter sat a young girl with perfect manicure who looked at me with a look full of professional interest. What can I do for you? I need to talk to a realtor about selling the house. Sure, my name is Chelsea, and you are? Cordelia Trentham. Chelsea typed something quickly on the computer. Mr. Davison is free in 15 minutes. Can you wait? I sat down in an upholstered chair next to a coffee table littered with glossy brochures. Your dream home, real estate investing, how to sell your home profitably. The covers showed happy families smiling against a backdrop of perfect houses with white picket fences. Robert Davison was a man in his 50s, with a plump figure and a habit of smiling even when he was talking about serious things. His office was furnished to impress. Leather armchairs, a massive desk, diplomas on the walls. Have a seat, Mrs. Trentham. Chelsea tells me you want to sell the house? I might. There's something I need to find out first. Davison pulled out a pad and pen. I'm listening carefully. The house is in my name only. Can someone else sell it without my consent? You mean a spouse? Children? Son. He's not on the title deeds, but some people think he has the right to dispose of the house. Davison shook his head. If the house is registered in your name, only you can make decisions about selling it. No one else has the right to do so, not even close relatives. What if I die? Then the house will go to the heirs according to the will, or by law if there's no will. But as long as you're alive and legally competent, you're the only one who can make decisions. That's a stone off my back. So all Persephone's talk about Caspian's voting rights is just a bunch of lies. All right, chuckles. Now here's another question. If I decide to sell the house, how fast can I do it? It depends on a lot of factors. Where is the house? What's the condition of the house? What price do you expect to pay? I gave the address. Davison nodded with a look of connoisseurship. Oh, it's a beautiful neighborhood. Maple Street is very popular right now. Close to the new hospital, good schools nearby. When was the house built? 1978. How many bedrooms? Bathrooms? 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, garage, basement, small lot. Davison wrote something down in his notebook. Sounds appealing. What's the condition of the house? When was the last time it was renovated? It's in good condition. Changed the roof and the heating boiler last year. Renovated the kitchen 5 years ago. That's great. In this market, your house could be worth anywhere from $200,000 to $270,000. Maybe even more if there are interested buyers. More than I thought. Persephone obviously expected to buy the house at the price of 20 years ago. How fast can you do a deal? With a motivated buyer, a month. Sometimes faster if the buyer is willing to pay cash. So you can sell a house in a week? Davison looked surprised. Theoretically, yes, but the price would be below market value. What's the rush? Family reasons. I see. Do you have any specific requirements for a buyer? I was thinking of Mortimer and Beatrice, who are planning a workshop in my basement. Yes, the buyer must not be connected to the Cruikshank family. Davison raised his eyebrows but didn't ask anything. Professional ethics. Good. If you do decide to sell, we'll need to inspect the house, take pictures, estimate the market value. That should take a day or two. And then, we advertise, show the house to potential buyers. With the right circumstances, you can find a serious buyer in a week. How much is this going to cost me? Our commission is 6% of the transaction, plus the cost of paperwork, home inspection by an appraiser. On average, 7 to 8% of the sale price. If the house sells for $250,000, the commission is about $18,000. It's a lot of money, but it's a lot to take in. Mr. Davison, do you work weekends? When necessary, yes. Do you have special circumstances? I'm having a party at my house tomorrow night. People who think they're the future owners want to meet the neighbors. It would be symbolic if a real buyer showed up at that moment. Davison smiled, and this time the smile looked genuine. I understand the situation. Yes, it would be quite spectacular, but you'd have to find a serious buyer very quickly. Do you have any clients looking for a house in our neighborhood? A few. Give me an hour, I'll make some calls. Davison picked up the phone and flipped through the records. There's a family, the Farmers, looking for a house near the new hospital. They have a teenage daughter with a chronic illness. Then there's a retired couple looking to move closer to their kids, and a young family with 2 small children, but they are on a tight budget. Can any of them make a decision quickly? The Farmers for sure. They have money from the sale of their previous home plus savings. If they like your house, they can make a deal very quickly. That's great. When can you arrange a viewing? When's convenient for you? I thought about the party tomorrow, Persephone sending out invitations to neighbors, Mortimer planning a workshop. Tomorrow afternoon, about 4 o'clock. That's fine, but I need to see the house today, take photos, prepare the paperwork. What time will you be home? After 6 p.m. That's fine. I'll be there at 7:30 if you don't mind. Davison handed me a business card and a real estate contract. If you decide to sell, sign the contract, but you might want to think about it first. Selling a house is a big decision. I've been thinking about it for 22 years. What's different now? Now I need to protect what is rightfully mine. I walked out of the office feeling like I was in control for the first time in days. I have a plan. I have legal justification. I have professional help. Persephone and her parents can plan whatever they want, but I'll have the final say. On the way home, I stopped at the supermarket. If there's a party tomorrow, we need to buy groceries. Not for Persephone's guests, for myself. So I can have a quiet dinner and watch the events unfold. I was picking out a steak in the meat department when I heard a familiar voice. Cordelia? What a surprise! It was Jennifer Harris, my neighbor, an older woman with gray hair and a habit of prying. Hello, Jennifer. I got an invitation to the party tomorrow night. How exciting that you have new neighbors moving in. Your sister-in-law's parents, right? Something like that. Where are you moving to? Persephone didn't specify in the invitation. Here we go. Persephone has already announced to the neighbors that I'm moving out. That's as far as it goes. The plans haven't been finalized yet, I said as calmly as I could. Oh, I see. You're probably looking for something smaller. At your age, a big house is a lot of work. Perhaps. Persephone's parents seem very nice. I saw them this morning walking around the neighborhood, exploring. Mortimer said he's planning on gardening. Well, that's commendable. Yes, and it's nice when families live near each other. That's the way it should be. Jennifer bought milk and bread and went to the register, waving goodbye. I stood by the refrigerator with the meat and felt my insides boiling with anger. So the decision had already been made and announced publicly. Cordelia's moving out, the Cruikshank family's moving in, everyone's happy. All that's left is for me to face the fact. But I have other plans. Davison arrived at 7:30 as promised. Mortimer and Beatrice had gone out to dinner with Persephone and Caspian to discuss plans for tomorrow's party. I purposely didn't suggest they stay home. I needed a few hours without too many eyes and ears. The realtor turned out to be a professional. He walked around the house with a tape measure and a notebook, took pictures of every room, wrote down the specifics of the layout. In the basement for a long time studied the heating boiler and electrical panel. "The condition is excellent," he said, going upstairs. "You can see that the house has been well cared for. A new roof, a new boiler, a renovated kitchen. These are big pluses. And the downside? The house is not new, which scares off some buyers. But it looks great for its age. I'd estimate it at $260,000. More than I expected." Persephone and her parents were obviously counting on a compliant old lady who'd give the house away for nothing. "When are the potential buyers coming?" "I'm bringing 3 clients tomorrow. The first at 1 o'clock, the second at 2 o'clock, the third at 4 o'clock. The last are the farmers I told you about. They have the most serious intentions." "What about the paperwork?" "I checked with the land registry. The house is registered solely in your name, no encumbrances. You can sell it whenever you want, to whomever you want." Davison packed his things and headed for the exit. "Mrs. Trentham, I know this is a difficult family situation, but are you sure you want to sell the house so quickly? It usually takes people months to weigh a decision like this." "I've been weighing it my whole life." "Well, good. Then I'll see you tomorrow." In the morning, I got up early, cleaned the house, and made breakfast. Mortimer and Beatrice came down at 8 in high spirits. "Cordelia, dear, what a lovely day." Beatrice sat down at the table and unfolded her napkin. "Today we are officially getting to know our neighbors. I'm so excited." "And I want to measure the basement again today," Mortimer added. "I want to figure out how much material I need for the workshop." I poured them coffee and sat down across from them. "I have a favor to ask of you. I'm having some guests over this afternoon, visitors for work. Could you take a walk around the city in the meantime?" "Of course." Beatrice splashed her hands. "We were already planning to go to the mall, to look at furniture stores. Right, Mortimer?" "Yes, I want to pick out a desk for my office." "Oh, that's great. Come back about 5 o'clock. My guests will be gone by then." After breakfast, they packed up and drove off in their Toyota. I was left alone in a house that in a few hours would be inspected by strangers. It was a strange feeling to show my home to potential buyers while uninvited guests were living in it. At 1 o'clock, Davison arrived with the first couple. A young couple with a 2-year-old child whom the man carried in his arms. They carefully inspected the house, especially interested in safety, whether there are latches on the windows, sharp corners of furniture, dangerous places for the baby. "The house is beautiful," the woman said. "But our budget is limited to $200,000. Can you lower the price?" "Unfortunately, no," I replied. "The market value of the house is higher." They thanked me and left. Davison waved his hands. "Good people, but they really don't have much money. The second couple would be here in half an hour. The next were pensioners in their 70s. They walked slowly, scrutinizing everything, asking about utilities and housekeeping expenses. "It's very cozy," said an elderly woman. "It reminds me of my childhood home. But we wanted something one-story. At our age, stairs are an unnecessary burden." They left too, promising to think about it. Davison looked at his watch. "We're waiting for the last ones. They should be here at 4. I spoke well of them, but I warn you, the family is peculiar." "What do you mean?" "Farmers, literally. The head of the family grows corn and soybeans 50 kilometers from here. Wife's a homemaker. 3 kids, 2 are adults, the third is 16, goes to the local school." "Why do they need a townhouse?" "Daughter's diabetic, needs to live close to the hospital. Plus, the younger one wants to go to university, and from the village it's more difficult." At exactly 4 o'clock, an old Ford pickup truck pulled up to the house. A tall man in a plaid shirt and jeans got out of the cab. He was in his 50s, with a tanned face and calloused hands. Behind him was a woman in a simple blue dress and a teenage girl with a pale face and serious eyes. "Barnabas Grickfield," the man said, extending his hand. "This is my wife Ruth and my daughter Hazel." His handshake was firm, his hand rough from work. Ruth smiled shyly. Hazel nodded politely. "Come in, please." They undressed in the hallway, though I said they didn't have to. It's a country habit not to walk in the house with street shoes. Barnabas looked around the house carefully, but without fuss. He checked the faucets in the bathroom, looked at the condition of the windows, studied the electrical outlets. In the basement, he took a long look at the boiler and water heater. "Nice appliances," he said. "Recently replaced?" "Last year." "And the roof?" "Last year, too." He nodded with the look of a connoisseur. "So there won't be any major spending for the next 10 years. That's important." Ruth explored the kitchen, opening cupboards, checking the oven. "Hazel, look how big this kitchen is. You can cook for the whole family in here." The girl went to the window. "Mom, and from here you can see the bus stop. It's easy to get to school." "Do you go to the local school?" I asked. "Yes, Sioux Falls High. I like it, but it takes an hour one way from the village. Dad takes the car, but it's inconvenient. Barnabas is back from the cellar." "The house is in excellent condition. You can see that the landlady has taken good care of it. How big's the lot?" "A quarter of an acre. It's not very big, but it's big enough. It's good for a townhouse. Ruth likes to garden, so she'll have plenty of room for beds." We went up to the second floor. Barnabas looked through the bedrooms, checking the condition of the floors and ceilings. In the master bedroom, he stopped at the window. "Nice view of the neighborhood. Quiet, peaceful. It's important to Hazel because she doesn't sleep well if there's noise." "Diabetes?" I asked quietly. "Yeah, since she was a kid. It's nothing critical, but it needs constant monitoring. In the village, the nearest doctor is 50 kilometers away, and here the hospital is 10 minutes away." We went down to the living room. Barnabas sat down in a chair and looked at the family. "Well, girls, do you like it?" "Very much," said Ruth. "Cozy house, nice kitchen, nice layout." "How about you, Hazel?" "I like it too, especially close to the school and the hospital." Barnabas turned to me. "Mrs. Trentham, Mr. Davison says you want to sell the house quickly. Can you explain why?" "Family reasons." "I see. Is the price finalized?" "Yes. 260,000 is a fair price for a house in this neighborhood. But I have a condition." "What's that?" "I need until tomorrow morning to discuss the details of the loan with the bank. If everything goes smoothly, I'll be ready to sign the preliminary contract at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." Davison raised his eyebrows. "Mr. Griekfield, people usually think for days before making a decision like that." "Mr. Davison, I'm a farmer. I'm used to making decisions quickly. If you hesitate, you miss opportunities. And this house is a good opportunity for my family." Barnabas stood up and held out his hand to me again. "If everything works out with the bank tomorrow, I'd be happy to be the buyer of your house. And if it doesn't, then we'll find another option. But I think we can. I have a down payment and a steady income from the farm." The Griekfields left, saying they'd be in touch tomorrow morning. Davison walked them to their car and returned looking pleased. "Great clients. Serious, solvent, no frills. If the bank approves the loan, it'll be a smooth transaction." "What are the odds?" "Farmers with their own land rarely have credit problems, especially if there's a down payment." As we stood in the hallway, I felt a strange sadness. This house would soon no longer be mine. Other people's families would be eating breakfast in my kitchen, sleeping in my bedrooms, watching TV in my living room. "Mrs. Trentham, have you changed your mind?" "No, I'm just, used to this place." "I understand. Selling a house is always an emotionally difficult decision, but sometimes it's necessary." "Yes, sometimes it's necessary." At 5 p.m., Mortimer and Beatrice returned, laden with shopping. Beatrice had bought new curtains for the kitchen, Mortimer a desk lamp for his future office. "How did your business meetings go?" Mortimer asked, setting the bags on the floor. "Fine," I replied. "Everything will be decided tomorrow." "That's great! And we've bought so many interesting things. Beatrice has already chosen the wallpaper for the living room." "Yes!" Beatrice took some samples out of her bag. "Look how beautiful they are. It's soft blue with a silver pattern. Very elegant. I looked at the wallpaper samples that the strangers were going to use to replace my old floral wallpaper. Very nice, I said. Davison called at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was just doing the dishes after breakfast, and Mortimer and Beatrice were making a shopping list for the party Persephone had instructed them to buy napkins, disposable dishes, and flowers. Mrs. Trentham, I have good news. Barnabas Greekfields contacted the bank and the loan's been approved. He wants to meet with you again to discuss the details of the deal. When? He can be here at 11 o'clock in the morning. No family, just him. He says he wants to take another look at the house and talk to you in person. That's fine. Let him come. I hung up the phone and turned to the Cruikshanks. They were sitting at a table with notepads and pens, looking like the headquarters for a military operation. We're going shopping in town, Beatrice announced. There's so much to buy for the party. Napkins, plastic plates, flowers for decorations. And I want to find a nice tablecloth, Mortimer added. Persephone said our table should look festive. Oh, and don't forget the drinks. Persephone made a whole list. Wine, beer, juices, mineral water. They got up from the table, still discussing plans. Don't you want to come with us? Beatrice asked. It's a party for you too. No, thank you. I've got things to do at home. Suit yourself. We'll be back at 3 o'clock at the latest. We have to get everything ready for the guests. They took the bags and the car keys. Mortimer took another look at his notebook to say goodbye. Beatrice, did you write down about the candles? Persephone wanted candles for the atmosphere. I did, darling, and the floral napkins. She said it was important for a first impression. They left, leaving me in silence. I cleared their notebooks and lists off the table, stacked them in a pile. Plans for someone else's party at my house. At 11 in the morning, a familiar pickup truck pulled up to the house. Barnabas Greekfield got out of the car and headed for the porch. He was dressed a little better this time. Clean jeans, a fresh shirt. But he still looked like a man used to physical work. Good morning, Mrs. Trentham. Thank you for seeing me. Come in. Would you like some coffee? I'd love some. We went into the kitchen. The house seemed especially quiet after the morning rush of the Cruikshanks. Barnabas sat at the table and looked out the window at the backyard. It was a nice place. Quiet, green. Ruth will be pleased, she loves nature. I put a cup of coffee in front of him and sat down across from him. Mr. Davison said the bank approved the loan. Yes, no problem. I have a down payment of $100,000. The rest is secured against the farm. $100,000 is a lot for a farmer. Barnabas grinned. Do you think we're all poor? No, Mrs. Trentham. A good farm in Iowa is a lucrative business, especially if you know what you're doing. Do you? I've been learning it all my life. My father inherited the farm. He inherited it from his father. Land's been in our family for over 100 years. And why do you want to move to the city? Barnabas was silent, sipping his coffee. There was something sad in his eyes. Because of Hazel. She's had type 1 diabetes since she was 7. It's a big problem in the village. Far to go to doctors, no specialists. This is a new hospital, good doctors. It's hard on a child. Very. Especially for a girl her age. Constant sugar control, insulin shots, diet. And if something goes wrong, there's no one in the village to help. And the farm? It stays. I'll commute to work every day. An hour and a half there, an hour and a half back. It's hard, but what can you do? Your wife doesn't mind moving? Ruth understands. It'll be hard for her too. She's used to country life, her garden, her neighbors. But the children are more important. Barnabas sipped his coffee and looked at me carefully. Can I see the house again? Yesterday I looked as a buyer, and today I want to look as a future owner. We went upstairs. Barnabas walked slowly through all the rooms, scrutinizing every detail. In the master bedroom, he stopped at the built-in closet. Very well done. Ruth likes closets like this. Plenty of space. Everything at her fingertips. I ordered them 5 years ago. The handyman took 3 weeks. You can see the quality. And this room. He went into the bedroom I'd once made for Caspian. It was practically empty now, just a guest bed and an old dresser. Is this where Hazel's going to live? If she likes it. It's a nice room. Bright, south-facing windows, quiet. It's good for studying. Is she a good student? She's an honor student. She wants to be a doctor. She says she's going to treat kids with diabetes. That's a noble goal. Yeah, Hazel believes she was given the disease for a reason, that she should help other kids deal with the same thing. We went down to the basement. Barnabas took another look at the boiler and the electrical panel, checked the water pipes. Everything's in perfect condition. What's this room? He pointed to a small room in the corner of the cellar where I kept canned goods and old things. It's a pantry. Can I turn it into a workshop? Sure. If the house is yours, you can do whatever you want. I like to work with my hands, fix things, make things. There's always something to fix in the village, but here I'll miss this kind of work. Like my son. He likes to tinker with machinery too. Where does he live? In another part of town. With his wife. Barnabas nodded, not asking any more questions. It was rustic delicacy not to pry into other people's family affairs uninvited. We returned to the kitchen. Barnabas sat down at the table and took a folded sheet of paper out of his pocket. Mrs. Trentham, I'm seriously interested in buying your house. I'd like to make a formal offer. Go ahead. $260,000. The down payment is $100,000 cash. The rest is a bank loan. We can get this deal done quickly if you don't mind. How fast? Mr. Davison said a week, maybe a little longer, but not a month. What if I change my mind? Barnabas shrugged. That's your right, but I wouldn't want to look for a house again and have to move my family. This one suits us in every way. How so? Nice neighborhood, solid house, reasonable price, close to the hospital and the school. He paused for words. And what? And it feels like good people have lived here. Ruth says that houses absorb the character of their owners. Some houses are cozy and peaceful, others are unsettling. This is peaceful. I didn't expect a practical farmer to say that. Do you believe that? Why wouldn't I? 20 years you've lived here, cared for it, loved it. You can't let that go to waste. A car drove by outside the window. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The usual sounds of a Saturday morning in a quiet neighborhood. Mrs. Trentham, may I ask you a personal question? Go ahead. Why did you decide to sell the house? I could tell it was important to you. I looked out the window at the maple tree I'd planted 20 years ago. It was tall and sprawling now, its branches swaying in the breeze. Sometimes you have to protect what you own, even if it means losing it. Barnabas nodded, as if he understood without explanation. Family problems? You could say that. I understand. I, too, have had situations where the best solution was to let something go, painful but necessary. We didn't talk for a while. Barnabas finished his coffee and stood up. Mrs. Trentham, my offer still stands. Think it over, take your time. I'll go home and discuss the details with Ruth. When do you want an answer? Tomorrow morning will be fine. But if you change your mind, tell me honestly. I don't want to get my hopes up. He was on his way out, then he turned around. One more thing. If you decide to sell us the house, you can be sure we'll take as good care of it as you did. After he left, I was alone in the silence of the house. I looked out the window and thought about the fact that in a few hours, the place would be full of people celebrating the Cruikshank family's move. And tomorrow morning, I might be signing a contract with Barnabas Greekfield. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Mortimer and Beatrice returned, laden with purchases. They were in high spirits, discussing their good finds and making plans for the evening. Cordelia, we have bought such beautiful things. Beatrice put the bags on the floor. A tablecloth with a golden border, napkins to match, candles and candlesticks. Everything will be very festive. Mortimer took a bottle of wine out of the bag. And this is a special occasion, French wine to celebrate a new beginning. They started laying out their purchases, turning my kitchen into a party warehouse. I watched this and thought about tomorrow morning. In the morning, I woke up to the sounds of furniture being rearranged in the living room. Mortimer and Beatrice had started preparing for the party at 7:30, moving the sofa and chairs to make room for the guests. Beatrice was humming something to herself, an old song about a happy home. I dressed and went downstairs. The kitchen was bustling with work. Beatrice was cutting vegetables for the salad. Mortimer was arranging glasses on a tray. The table was set with a new tablecloth with a gold border, and candles and candlesticks stood in the center. "Good morning, Cordelia." Beatrice smiled at me. "What a beautiful day for a party. The weather is lovely. The mood is perfect." "Persephone will arrive at 11 in the morning," Mortimer added. "She wants to check everything one more time before the guests arrive." I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down in a corner, away from the commotion. Mortimer was hanging a garland over the entrance to the living room, and Beatrice was folding napkins in a special way like flowers. "Won't you help us?" Beatrice asked. "After all, it's your party too." "My party?" "Yes, you're starting a new life too. Free, unencumbered, free of your own home. That's a nice way of putting it." At 11 a.m., Persephone and Caspian arrived. Persephone was dressed in a new ivory dress. Caspian looked awkward in an ironed shirt and tie. He didn't like formal events, preferring jeans and t-shirts. "Mom, Dad, you're doing great." Persephone hugged her parents. "Everything looks marvelous, and the garland is a great idea." She walked through the house, checking every detail. She adjusted the napkins on the table, moved the vase of flowers, lit the candles. Caspian helped Dad with the drinks. Let Mom handle the appetizers. Caspian nodded and headed for the refrigerator. Our eyes met for a second, and I saw something like an apology in his gaze. At 1:30, the guests started arriving. The first to arrive were the Harrison neighbors, an elderly couple who lived across the street. They were followed by younger neighbors with children, then a single woman from across the street. Persephone greeted everyone at the entrance, introduced her parents as new residents of the neighborhood, talked about their plans and dreams. Mortimer talked about a future workshop in the basement, Beatrice about a garden she wanted to plant behind the house. "What kind of workshop would it be?" a neighbor named Gerald asked. "A carpenter's shop," Mortimer answered. "I've dreamed of making furniture with my own hands all my life. Now there will be a time and a place." "That's great! Maybe you can make something to order?" "My wife needs a new bookcase." "Oh, sure. We'd be happy to work with the neighbors." Beatrice was showing wallpaper samples to the women. "These blue ones are for the living room and the cream ones are for the bedroom. I want to create an atmosphere of comfort and tranquility." "What good taste," Mrs. Harris admired. "What does Cordelia think of the change?" Everyone looked at me. I stood in the corner of the living room with a cup of tea and watched what was happening. "Cordelia is very pleased," Persephone answered quickly. She had longed for a change of scenery. Hadn't she, Cordelia? "Yes," I said. "Change is always interesting." By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the house was full of people. Guests were walking through the rooms, admiring the furnishings, discussing renovation plans. Mortimer took the men to the basement, showing them where the workbench would be and where he would hang the tools. "There's enough room even for a small lathe," he explained. "I've always wanted to try turning wood." "Will there be enough electricity?" someone asked. "The panel will allow it." Cordelia had recently remodeled, everything modern. Cordelia had recently renovated her house with her own money. Now other people were using it. Beatrice showed the women the kitchen. "The dishwasher is almost new. The oven is big enough to cook for the whole family. And the refrigerator is so big." "You're lucky to have a house," said one of the neighbors. "They rarely sell anything in this condition." "Cordelia took great care of the house," Beatrice agreed. "We're very grateful to her, grateful to be kicked out of our own place." At 3:30, I went up to my bedroom. I needed to be alone to prepare for what was about to happen. Davison was supposed to arrive with Barnabas at 4 o'clock. That was an hour and a half away. I sat at the window and looked out at the street. The guests' cars were parked outside the house, and teenagers, the neighbors' kids, were laughing on the porch. Everyone looked happy and content. A good party, good luck meeting new neighbors. Downstairs, they heard voices, the clinking of dishes, music. Persephone put on some light instrumental music, something appropriate for an afternoon reception. Caspian poured wine. Mortimer told jokes. Beatrice accepted compliments on the hors d'oeuvres. At 3 o'clock, I went downstairs. There were even more guests, families with children, elderly people from neighboring houses, even young couples without children. Persephone was in the center of attention, accepting congratulations, telling how good it is when families live close to each other. "And where's the person responsible for the celebration?" Mrs. Harris asked. Cordelia, congratulations on your new stage of life. Thank you, I said. It must be exciting to leave the house where you've lived for so many years, isn't it? Very exciting. But what freedom! No worries about repairs, about cleaning a big house. You can travel, do hobbies. Yes, you can do a lot of things. Persephone came up to me and took me under her arm. Cordelia is so wise. She understands that a house should serve the family, not the other way around. Don't you, Cordelia? She does. A house should belong to those who appreciate it. At 4:30, I went out on the porch to get some air. The guests had filled the entire first floor, and there were children playing outside. The atmosphere was festive. Everyone looked happy. At exactly 4 o'clock, 2 cars pulled up to the house. First Davison's new sedan, then Barnabas's familiar pickup truck. A realtor in a business suit and a farmer in a clean shirt got out of the cars. Mrs. Trentham, Davison said hello. We're here as agreed. Come on in. We entered the house. The sound of voices and music hit us like a wave. There were guests in the hallway, children dancing in the living room, women laughing in the kitchen. Wow, Barnabas said. You're having a party. Yes, the Cruikshank family is celebrating moving into their new home. Davison raised his eyebrows. But it's still yours. It's still mine. Persephone noticed our arrival. She approached us with a look of surprise. Cordelia, who's this? Mr. Davison, the realtor. Mr. Greekfield, the buyer of the house. Persephone's face went pale. The buyer? Yes, Mr. Greekfield wants to buy my house for $260,000. The chatter died down. The guests began to turn around, listening to our conversation. Mortimer approached with a glass of wine in his hand. I'm sorry, I don't understand. What buyer are we talking about? The buyer of this house, Davison replied. I'm representing Mrs. Trentham in the sale. Beatrice joined her husband. But we've made a deal, we're buying the house. You didn't make an agreement with anyone, I said. The house is mine, and I'm selling it to Mr. Greekfield. But what about our plans? The party? We've already introduced ourselves to the neighbors as new residents. Barnabas looked at the crowd. I'm sorry if we've disrupted your party, but I'm really buying this house. Caspian came over to me. Mom, what are you doing? We talked about this. We didn't discuss anything. You asked for money, I said no. But Persephone's parents can buy any other house they want, with their own money. The guests started to look around. Some of them started to leave. The atmosphere of celebration faded, replaced by an awkward tension. Persephone grabbed my arm. Cordelia, you can't do this. We planned the whole thing, invited people, announced the move. And you forgot to ask me. But Caspian is your son. He has rights. He has no rights to my house. Davison pulled some papers out of his briefcase. If you'll allow me to explain the legalities. The house is registered solely in the name of Cordelia Trentham. Only she has the right to make decisions about the sale. Mortimer blushed. This is a hoax. We've been misled. No one misled you, I said calmly. You've decided that you can dispose of other people's property. But we spent money. We bought furniture, wallpaper, made plans. I'm ready to compensate you for your expenses. As promised. Barnabas stood by and watched the scene in silence. Most of the guests had already headed for the exit, muttering apologies and goodbyes. Mr. Greekfield, Persephone said, turning to him, you do realize this is a family conflict, don't you? Shouldn't we wait until it's settled? Barnabas shook his head. Ma'am, I'm buying the house from the rightful owner. Family conflicts are none of my business. But this is unethical. It's unethical to celebrate in someone else's house, the farmer replied calmly. The house was empty in half an hour. The guests hurriedly said their farewells, apologized for intruding on the family's business, and disappeared one by one. Mrs. Harris said to me in parting, Cordelia, dear, you did the right thing. The house should belong to those who deserve it. The other neighbors nodded silently and quickly left the area of conflict. By 5 p.m., we were the only ones left in the house. The Cruikshank family, Caspian and Persephone, Barnabas and Davison, and me. The atmosphere was oppressive. Mortimer sat in a chair and stared dully at the extinguished candles on the table. Beatrice was crying on the sofa. holding the floral napkin she had so carefully chosen for the party to her face. Persephone was thrashing around the living room, back and forth between her husband and her parents. Her party dress looked ridiculous in the atmosphere of defeat. Caspian stood at the window, his back to everyone, and remained silent. Davison spread out the transaction papers on the coffee table. Barnabas studied them carefully, occasionally asking questions. They acted as if nothing unusual had happened. To them, this was a normal real estate transaction. "Mr. Greekfield," Persephone said, approaching the table. "Perhaps you'd like to think about it. This house means a lot to us." "Ma'am, I understand your frustration," Barnabas replied, not looking up from the deeds. "But the deal is between me and Mrs. Trentham. Your opinion is irrelevant. But we have plans. We've already arranged everything. Plans can be changed, and you've set up someone else's house without the landlady's permission." Barnabas signed the first document and handed it to Davison. "Mrs. Trentham, I need your signature on this." I took the pen. The ink was blue and the letters were smooth. My name on the deed to my house. It was a strange feeling, selling something that had been the center of your life for 22 years. "Cordelia," Beatrice exclaimed, rising from the sofa. "You can't do this. We're family." "We're not family," I replied, signing the second document. "Family is people who respect each other, and you decided to dispose of my house without my consent. But you thought an old woman couldn't stand up to you, that I could be intimidated and coerced." Mortimer rose from his chair and came closer. "Cordelia, we may have started this conversation wrong, but our intentions were honorable. We really wanted to help Caspian and Persephone. Help them by taking their mother's house, not by taking it away, by buying it at a fair price." "What fair price? You offered me 20 years ago." Mortimer hesitated. "Well, maybe the price could have been negotiated. It's too late to discuss it now." I signed the last document. Davison gathered the papers into a folder. "The deal is done. Mr. Greekfield, the money needs to be transferred within the week. Mrs. Trentham, you have a month to vacate the house." "A month is plenty of time." Barnabas stood up and held out his hand to me. "Mrs. Trentham, thank you for a fair deal. I promise I'll take as good care of the house as you have. I'm sure you will. Can I ask you a question? Where do you plan to live?" "I'll get an apartment or a little house. You don't need a lot of space on your own." Barnabas nodded and headed for the exit. Davison followed him. "Mrs. Trentham, if you have any questions, call me. I'll be there in a week with the title deeds." "Okay." The door closed behind them. There was silence in the house. Mortimer and Beatrice sat on the sofa, holding hands. Persephone stood in the middle of the living room, looking as if she couldn't believe what had happened. Caspian was still staring out the window. "What's going to happen now?" Beatrice asked quietly. "Now you're going to pack your things and go home," I said. "And tomorrow you'll start looking for another house to buy." "But we don't have time to look. Our house is almost sold. So we'll have to live in rented accommodation, temporarily." Persephone turned to me. "Cordelia, do you realize what you've done? Your selfishness has hurt the whole family." "My selfishness? I was protecting my property. You've ruined our plans." "I didn't ruin your plans. I just didn't let you ruin my life." Caspian finally turned away from the window. "Mom, can we talk in private?" Sure." We went into the kitchen. Caspian sat down at the table where the remnants of the holiday treats were still standing. Appetizers in beautiful plates, glasses with leftover wine, extinguished candles. "Mom, I didn't mean for it to turn out this way." "What did you mean?" "I thought we could work things out. As a family." "Caspian, have you ever asked my opinion, just once?" He didn't say anything. "Persephone said she'd talk to you." "Persephone didn't offer me anything. She gave me orders." "She didn't order you. She was explaining why it was reasonable." "Caspian, be honest. Did you really think you had the right to sell my house?" "I thought we were a family, and families are supposed to help each other." "Help each other, yes, but not at the expense of one of the family members." Caspian rubbed his face with his hands. He looked tired and confused. "Mom, we're in serious financial trouble. If we don't find the money, we could be evicted." "I know that. You told me. What was I supposed to do? Work. Look for extra money. Ask my wife to find any job, not just the right one. Sell the car, move to a cheaper place. There's a lot of things you could do, but it's complicated. Caspian, is taking the house away from your mother easy? He stopped talking. Muffled voices came from the living room, Persephone explaining something to her parents. Mom, will you help me? With what? Money. At least some of it. I looked at my son. 38 years old, a grown man asking his mother for money after trying to take her house. Caspian, answer the question. Do you think what you tried to do was right? Ia, I wanted to solve my family's problems. That doesn't answer my question. He was quiet for a long time. No, probably wrong. Probably? Wrong? I shouldn't have claimed your house? And apologize? Mom, I'm sorry. What I did was wrong. I got up and went to the window. It was already getting dark outside, the streetlights were on. A normal Saturday night in a quiet neighborhood. Caspian, I'll give you $15,000, once and for all. Mom, thank you. That'll help a lot. Wait, I have conditions. What are they? First, you tell Persephone that I'm giving the money, not us together, and that there will be no more help. Okay. 2, you find an extra job, anything. Weekends, evenings, whatever. I will. 3, Persephone has to get any job within a month. Doesn't have to be in marketing. Saleswoman, waitress, cleaning lady, it doesn't matter. Caspian wrinkled his nose. Mom, she wouldn't like that. I didn't like it when she tried to kick me out of the house. If the terms aren't right, there's no money. I'll talk to her. And the 4th condition is the most important. What's that? Don't ever try to solve my problems for me again, and don't let your wife do it. Caspian nodded. I see. Caspian, I love you. You're my son, but you're a grown man, and you have your own family, and I have my own life. I understand that? Good. Sighs. Then go tell Persephone and her parents it's time for them to pack. Caspian went back into the living room. I could hear him quietly explaining something. Persephone objected indignantly, but softly. Mortimer and Beatrice were silent. Half an hour later, they gathered their belongings. Mortimer put the new tools he was buying for the workshop into a box. Beatrice packed curtains and wallpaper. Persephone silently put the holiday dishes into a bag. Cordelia, Mortimer said goodbye. I hope you won't hold a grudge against us. I don't hold a grudge. I just don't want to see you again. I understand. Beatrice came to me with tearful eyes. And we've dreamed of living in this house. You'll find another house, a good one. But not like this. No, not like this. This house will belong to the Greekfield family. Persephone stopped at the door. Cordelia, Caspian told me about the money. Thank you. You're welcome. But remember the terms. I do. One more thing. Don't try to tell me how to live my life anymore. Persephone nodded and walked out. Caspian hugged me goodbye. Mom, I'm sorry again for everything. I forgive you, but don't do it again. I won't. They're gone. I was alone in a house that would no longer be mine in a month. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, extinguished the candles. I erased the traces of someone else's holiday in my house. The next 3 weeks were busy. I looked for an apartment to rent, sold unwanted furniture, packed my things. Barnabas came twice, once with his wife and daughter to measure the rooms for new furniture, the second time to discuss the details of the house transfer. Ruth Grickfield proved to be a quiet woman with kind eyes. She walked around the house as if she had already seen how her family would live here. Mrs. Trentham, may I keep the built-in closets in the bedroom? They're very comfortable. Oh, of course. Keep whatever you think you'll need. And that rug in the living room? You can have it. I won't be needing it in my new apartment. Hazel chose a room for herself, the same one where Caspian once lived. The girl stood at the window and looked at the street. From here you can see the bus stop. It'll be easy to get to school. Yeah, it's not far to the hospital if you need anything. Thank you for selling us the house. Dad said you could have gotten more money from the other buyers. Money isn't the most important thing. It's about getting the house to good people. Are we good people? I think so. Barnabas transferred the money on time. $260,000 went into my bank account. More money than I ever had. I paid the realtor, put some away for a new apartment, some to live on. $15,000 I wired to Caspian. He called the same day. Mom, thanks for the money. It's a big help. How's work going? I got a part-time job. I'll be fixing air conditioners on the weekends. And Persephone? She got a sales job at a clothing store. It's temporary, but it's still a job. That's good. Mom, can we get together sometime? Have dinner or something? Sure, you're my son. Thank you. Chuckles. I really miss you. I miss you too. A week before the move, I found a small apartment in the same neighborhood. 1 floor, 2 rooms, kitchen, bathroom. Small but cozy. And most importantly, it was mine. No one could come along and say it should belong to someone else. On my last day, I walked around the house and said goodbye to every room. The bedroom where I'd slept for 22 years. In the kitchen, where I'd made thousands of breakfasts and dinners. In the living room, where I welcomed New Year's and birthdays. In the basement, where she kept canned goods and dreams. Barnabas arrived in the evening to take over the house. We went through all the rooms, checked the appliances were in working order, handed over the keys. Mrs. Trentham, thank you for a fair deal, and for leaving so many useful things behind. You're welcome to use it. Where are you moving to? To an apartment on Oak Street. It's not far from here. If you need anything, you're welcome. Ruth makes great pies. Oh, thank you. I left the house with 1 suitcase. The rest of my stuff was already in the new apartment. Barnabas helped me carry it to the car. Good luck to you, Mrs. Trentham. Good luck to you, too. Take good care of the house. I will. I got in the car and drove to my new life. In the rearview mirror, I saw the house on Maple Street, my old house. It belonged to the Greekfield family now, and they would be happy in it. And I'll be happy in my little apartment where no one can decide for me how to live my life, where I am the master of my own destiny, and where I make every decision for myself. 22 years I've been building a house. Now I will build myself.